Why do I only hear about defunding the police instead of police academy reform? It's easy to pass a test on human rights, it doesn't mean you believe it. It isn't just the individual cops. It's the system. In my area, they don't even investigate crime unless it is very serious. What's the point of police if I have to literally be in a coma in the hospital before they will even answer the phone? The money spent on police could be better used on other community outreach that will have a higher return on investment and actually reduce crime more. Defunding the police is about reforming the entire way we deal with what is currently bundled in with police duties. Why would we send police to deal with a mental health crisis? What's the use in arresting an addict? How does sending in aggressive cops help reduce homelessness? Police are expected to do everything, but their training is often coaching them into an us versus them mentality. Goodies versus baddies. Therefore, anyone who's not in uniform is a threat, and everyone in uniform needs protection. So, yes, reforming training helps. And we've seen that in the UK, where there are now fewer problems than there were 30 years ago. And few guns, so fewer deaths. But the underlying racism, sexism, and abuse of the system is still so ingrained in the structure that even when you get a good cop, they either assimilate or leave. So do we keep throwing our money at the problem and hope that these decades-long issues solve themselves? Nope. Tried it. Failed. Instead, what we do is completely rebuild from scratch, designing greater safeguards and power limitations, handing over most duties and funding to more appropriate organizations, hence defunding rather than reforming. Training has not been shown to make much dent in bad police behavior. What does make a difference is accountability. Actual justice where specific cops make amends. Not city coffers dumping money to victims while cops get paid vacation. Police reform is being talked about non-stop for all of modern history. There have been small things done here and there. It's not a magic solution. The problem is police culture and the expectation they will get off scot-free. And how they usually do. 1. The problem isn't individual cops. It's the entire system that they uphold, which is one of inequality. 2. Cops shouldn't be in half of the situations they're in, like dealing with homelessness or mental health crises. The insanely bloated budgets that are allotted for police could really help the community in tangible ways that would reduce crime before it ever happened, instead of showing up after the fact and escalating the entire situation. Defund the police is a dumb slogan for a really important movement. For one, we are spending way too much money on police. For example, when we have SWAT teams and National Guards, do we really need to arm police like they are going to war? Do police really need tanks? The issue is far more complicated than this, of course. I am just short on time. ATM. Fun fact you may have heard about Uvalde. The city spent $4 million on a SWAT team that did nothing when it mattered. Along the lines of the overfunding, we are asking way too much of police. We are asking them to be psychologists and crisis therapists for the mentally ill and suicidal, to be animal control, and to be EMTs when they find people ODing, amongst other tasks that are not part of their job description. We are also not giving them training to do these things. Instead of expecting them to be experts of all trades, let us instead move that funding to other programs or create programs that can address these needs. An additional issue I have heard brought up by defund supporters is that the people hired to police communities aren't required to be living in them, meaning that your city may be paying for a cop that they cannot collect taxes and can't count on spending that money in the community, thereby keeping your community's wealth there. There are a lot of arguments behind defund the police, that do not have to do with police hate. Well, probably because you are not seeking out information on the topic. 'Cause this is literally all they talk about in police reform and defund circles. First, I must correct your assumption. Unfortunately, no. We're not firing the bad cops. It's more like, when there's a huge scandal and cops are forced to take accountability, they choose one or two scapegoats to sacrifice to the press, and then they continue being harmful and dangerous. The few bad apples saying is constantly being misunderstood and misused. The full expression goes, a few bad apples spoil the bunch. And it means that rot is infectious. And that's true for the police as well. Ironically, the term they use to defend themselves is truer than these dumbskulls even realize. When there's a culture of violence and oppression, you cannot come in with good intentions and good ideas and fix it from within. Either you're gonna be ostracized and frozen out for calling out your peers and insisting on moral integrity and rules be respected, or you're gonna adapt to your surroundings and become just as bad. The whole institution is rotten to the core. It was started as slave catchers, bounty hunters and actual gangsters. It hasn't changed much. I think there's a principal problem with having a group of citizens set above the law, given extra power and weapons and next to no accountability. Another factor is that cops are not here to protect humans. They are here to protect property. That's a very important distinction when we talk about policing. They are not here for everyone, but set in to protect the existing class system, even if they themselves are at the bottom socio-economic cali. But they get the extra benefits of robbing and killing the rest of the lower classes with no impunity. And that's at least something for them. Enough to soothe their own feelings of frustration and injustice. And as you say, they are poorly trained. But that's not for a lack of funds. It's on purpose. This is not a glitch or a bug. The system functions exactly as intended. Defunding the police means to prioritize spending on social issues instead of weapons, to hire mental health professionals and do harm reduction, have de-escalation response teams instead of undereducated and over-anxious men with guns. And they want to improve training for cops. So you actually agree with the defunders. It doesn't mean to close the whole thing down. Unfortunately, I'm more radical than the defunders. Though I sympathize with their hopes and their good intentions, I don't believe that the police institution is salvageable. I'm a police abolitionist. Break the police union and you remove their immunity. That is who protects and gets new jobs for scumbag cops. That is who buys off politicians to protect bad cops. Once the union is gone, you can do real police reform. It's easy to say they need more money for reform, and then actually funnel it into IDK. Shiny new cop cars. A while back I remember reading about how one department had actually spent thousands on cheese puffs or something. It's been a while. Don't remember specifics. There's just not a lot of accountability for what is done with the money put toward reform. The academies do need a lot of reform. They are deep into the same problematic culture. They promote violence and discourage accountability and do it overtly. You can try to change them, but in the end there is no reason for police to stop that behavior because they aren't held accountable for the things they do. But if you make police accountable for their violence, then that strategy stops working and they will be forced to change through selective pressure. Not much sense in reforming something that's working as intended. Police abuse is not a bug. It is a feature. If you have a car that has a tire with a slow leak, do you just throw money at putting air in it, or do you fix the hole in the tire? Defund the police is supposed to be about reallocating funds away from police and moving it to programs that help resolve the usual causes of crime. Part of the problem is that we already spend way too much money on cops. If we shifted some of that money to social services, we could prevent a lot of problems from happening or solve them before cops need to get involved. Police are very politically powerful. They'd resist it. What does defunding the police mean? From what I understand, it's not about defending the police exactly, it's about reallocating some of the funds from police and using that money to hire people who are trained to help and respond to people with mental health issues or other issues that traditional police officers are not trained to deal with, and in turn putting less strain on those officers. Many people have talked about it. The tragedy that so few cops are equipped to deal with mental illness can be dealt with by standardized academy training, conflict resolution from the beginning. Honestly, if more departments publicize fitness goals and run their own boot camps before hiring, the academy could reduce both gun safety and fitness and focus more on pole carrying. Or utilize community colleges to create standard criminal justice associate of applied science. Or even technical certificates to standardize knowledge among departments within the state at least. Utilize existing opportunities. An associate's degree with standard curriculum. Then targeted training at an academy would significantly reduce the lack of training argument. Well, we tried reform. Because it's not just about defunding the police but taking that money and using it toward actual solutions. Affordable housing, addiction resources, mental health resources, etc. If you cut down on mental illness and poverty, you cut crime at least in half. You only hear defund the police because real discussion on the problems that generated the movement is complex. You also have multiple groups pushing it around with different motives, as evidenced by your comment section here. Personally, I don't think any blanket rules should be made. I live in an area near a military base with little corruption in the police force and a lot of military families rotating in and out. Occasionally someone does something that I would really like the police to handle. And they do. So it is working here. I don't want our community to slip off the rails because other places are run poorly. You need something geared more towards addressing corruption as a whole. Because it's obvious it's not just the police who suffer from it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.